as a masterclass is definitely going to help attract your goals. It's going to lower resistance. It's going to make sure that your dreams start chasing you and not vice versa. So I have developed the entire masterclass designed on polarity, on the art of attraction, persuasion, getting that guy, getting that girl, being able to get the job promotion, attract more money into your life. It all goes down to the psychology and into the physics of polarity. So let's just dive right into it because I am recording this for the masterclass. You are going to find this on the masterclass as one of the lessons, and it's just like a little bit of a tidbit. So polarity overall right here, we have a couple of learning objectives in this masterclass. For this lesson particularly, we want to define polarity and why does it even matter in human behavior and why does it matter in influence. I'm going to go again over that. It's about, the relationships. It's about money dynamics. It's about your polarity, your inner healing between your childhood and your adulthood. You have somebody that has experienced trauma, whether it was relationship trauma or a physical trauma. Polarity is another key aspect to being able to heal past trauma. And then our second learning objective for this lesson is how to explore how polarity creates attraction and influences others. This day one of the workshop is all about persuasion and attraction through polarity and psychology. So I'm mixing in psychology with like psychotherapy as well as psychology when it comes to spirituality. So you might have heard of like the law of attraction, the law of polarity. These type of laws really do influence how we're going to show up in the world and kind of our inner dialogue. We call this like our inner being. Some people call it their inner voice, but this goes back to the concept of polarity. So you're going to see a little bit of my drawings here, and I am not particularly a good stylist drawing person. I'm not one of those doodle people, but we will definitely get the idea across here. So I'm going to go ahead and select some colors here. Red is what I'm all about. When we go into physics for polarity, I really want to nail some hard science, and then we'll get into psychology, and then we'll get into spirituality. So we'll hit all three bases, but I want to meet everyone where they're at. And if you are somebody that is very skeptical when it comes to spirituality, or if you are somebody that just really wants the hard science, I'm going to dive into that. So most people, when they think of polarity, they think of physics and they think of like a magnet. So I'm going to draw my little magnet here. And each magnet has what's called a pole on it. So I'm going to make this pole red. So I'm just going to color it in. And I'm going to leave this pole white. So this is my little magnet here. For polarity, what we have, just like on a magnet, is a positive and a negative. Now, anyone that's ever had batteries together, they know that they either go in a certain type of way to make the machine work, or if you put them in backwards, the machine's not going to work. That is the law of the universe. That is the law of that toy. That is the law of the remote control. As you have the positive and you have the negative, these two are going to be attracted to each other. They're always trying to meet. If you put a positive next to a positive, it's going to repel, it's going to go away, versus if you put a negative over here with a negative, again, it's going to repel. If you can just remember the attraction as well as the repelling of the magnet, all of these concepts that I get into later are going to make so much more sense, and it's just going to click a lot better for you. So polarity as a definition, this is your physics. This is your hard science type of definition. Now, I'm not just about the hard science, though. Remember, we're in here for psychology, too. And this is where we get into psych. Psych. Wonderful. Okay, so psychology, when it comes to polarity, is slightly different than the physics version. Psychology, when it comes to polarity, is about our mood. I'll underscore that: mood, attitudes, emotions, and behaviors. So the psychology of polarity is really getting into that mental state. And if you paid attention to our other lessons, which this is kind of something I'm just doing, from a one-off point, is the polarity really goes into our subconscious. I'm going to draw a little brain here, the brain stem, the cerebellum as well. And let's see if I can write sub in here. Maybe. Wonderful. So far, so good. Subconscious. There we go. Subconscious. Marvelous. So our polarity only comes from our subconscious. Our consciousness always tries to write over our polarity, which makes relationships, when we get into relationships a little bit later, way more difficult than they need to be, versus if you understand psychology and the subconscious of polarity, it makes your interpersonal, which we're going to dive into first, so much more simple. So with this, I want to really pay attention to our emotions, because our subconscious only operates on an emotional level. In a different video, I go into the subconscious and how we communicate with our subconscious to be able to produce the type of lifestyle we want, to be able to produce polarity on the levels that we want it, and to be able to attract. But for now, we're going to keep it super high level because I really want to stay on the concept of just polarity. Now, I mentioned about the physics version of the positive and the negative. This is called valence, the in-between. The reason that these two want to go together, or they want to go apart. So this is valence. The fancy word, but it doesn't have to mean much other than, are we going together or are we going apart? Perfect. And again, for polarity, we're focusing on the emotions. I'm a big believer, and I'll even write this out because I think it's so important. There are no good nor bad emotions. See if I can drag this about here. There we go. There are no good or bad emotions. Whew, there we go. There's just emotions. So I'll say that until I'm blue in the face, but there's no good nor bad emotions. There are just emotions. All right. So polarity is going to take the psychology here of your good and bad emotions, or your emotional state, as is better said, and it measures the direction of the emotional response to the stimulus or situation. Again, another fancy way to say, hey, when I'm having an experience or an emotion, say happy, my happy face, and I have a not so positive emotion or a negative emotion, we're going to have that sad face. These guys are in a polarized relationship with each other. Because what do you want to be when you're happy? Well, to be happy, you have to recognize what being sad is like. And to be sad, you have to recognize what being happy is like. So polarity is just measuring this direction, or this attraction or repelling between these emotional responses. And the stimulus or the situation is whatever happened to make you happy or sad. So this could be, maybe you got some money, made you happy, or let's say you got a stimulus and you lost money and made you sad. So this concept overall is how you define polarity in emotional states. All right, let's move on into the polarity when it comes to, let's say, our inner person. Let's say you're talking about yourself and you're trying to heal your trauma, or you're talking about trying to accomplish a certain type of goal. Every single one of us has this dynamic of polarity within ourselves and then also within these relationships. So I'm just going to move over here and we'll get back into relational. but we're going to talk about ourselves because I'm a big believer you have to heal yourself. You have to be in your correct energy before you can accomplish really anything. So let's get into it. Go back to my red color because I love that red. Okay, so I'm going to make a person here. And this is my lovely person. I have some legs, I have some arms, and I'm smiling. I'm a very smiley person. Pretty happy. Perfect. All right. So this is you. This is me. This is all of us. This is our intrapersonal. So when you come and you sit next to me and you're sitting in my chair, you're sitting across my Zoom, and you're like, okay, I'm here. This is where I'm going to say, how are you feeling today? There we go. How are you feeling? There we go. How are you feeling? And this is your interpersonal emotional state right here. Now, for lack of a better terminology, we have a state of emotions that's in our feminine, and we have a state of emotions in our masculine energy. And neither of these are good nor bad, because if you remember from earlier, I clearly said that there was no good nor bad emotions, there's just emotions. So what we're doing here is just really uncovering what is the polarity that we have within ourselves. So I'm just going to make a bridge here because I want it to all come together for us. Interpersonal polarity starts with the polarity of ourselves. That's our bridge. That's where we're going. So let's move back in here. And we're going to talk about feminine qualities and we're going to talk about masculine qualities. This way we can start healing and attracting our goals. Back to my colors. All about that red. Okay. So feminine qualities live in us just as much as masculine. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter if you are old or young. Nothing matters when it comes to anything other than the fact that you have different energies, just like above, within yourself. So the feminine energy is going to be the negative energy, and the masculine energy is going to be the positive energy. So if you remember how I made that magnet earlier, you had the positive pole and you had the negative pole. The feminine energy within ourselves has some qualities. These qualities are going to be passive, which means things come to us. It's that receiving energy. It's going to be creative. It's going to be in flow. So there's not a lot of direction. In fact, it's directionless to the point where it's chaotic. Feminine energy really wants to nurture. If you are somebody that likes to make a house into a home, that's what that concept means. It's very nurturing. You may have like an animal or a pet that you like to cuddle with. That's very soft energy. Feminine energy also likes to collect. If you go back to caveman woman times, the women would go out into the forest and they would hunt all of these berries, and they'd go to these bushes and they knew where all these bushes were to get these berries, and they would collect all the berries for us to eat. Gatherers. So you can call them berry gatherers. Berry. And then finally, the feminine energy is very passive, which means it's our time to rest. Most of the time, when people are having issues in their feminine energy, they're having issues being able to receive and relax. Thus, they end up experiencing things like burnout, and they experience things that require them to be very high strung, which is never fun. That's not what we're trying to do. We want to have a very balanced feminine energy. And then our masculine energy is the exact opposite of our feminine energy. So our masculine energy is going to be very active. I'm going to put like a barbell in your arm here, because it's very active energy, masculine. There we go. And then the masculine energy wants to build. This is why the masculine energy is so good at building businesses and to be able to like build homes, be able to go out there. Provides a lot of structure to be able to contain different types of roles. You got to know where you're going. I call this provision when I think of masculine energy, which is really important when it comes to relationships. That masculine energy has the 3 P's. And this is what I look for whenever I'm looking at relationship dynamics, or I'm looking at, if I'm going to want to be with somebody to build a business. I'm looking for these 3 P's. I'm looking for provision, protection, and providing. If you are a lady and you are wanting to have a very masculine man in your life, these are the 3 things that we're looking for. So listen up, fellas. This is like the core thing if you're trying to attract a very feminine woman. If you can provide provision, protection, and providing, these 3 P's will get you there every single time. All right. So going back over here to our intrapersonal dynamics, you have the leadership. That goes back to the provision over here. So leadership, draw it over to provision. Hunting. Men love to go out into the world. Most of the time, if a woman has the choice, she will stay in her oasis. If you put her in a spa, she's all happy versus like relaxed. Versus men like to go hunt. Even those caveman times, they go hunt. And that's very primal. That's biological. But remember, these are within us, both of these qualities. So you have hunting qualities in you as much as you have the resting and the nurturing. Masculine energy also is very much on the attack and is very competitive. The feminine energy does not do competition. The feminine energy is all about let's share and like smile and like care. So like a feminine energy will like share information, kind of like I'm doing right now. So you have your masculine over here, and over here you have the feminine. Now I represented this as drawing it out on the right side with the feminine or the masculine. But if you think of it from the point of view of the person that I drew out, her left side is her feminine and her right side is her masculine. And that's because we affiliate in spirituality, the right side with the masculine and the left side with the feminine. And if you want to get into psychology once more, we have our brain. Let's see if I might be able to fit it down here. We have our brain. We have those 2 hemispheres. It crisscrosses to our brain. And that is why a lot of our creativity is going to be in the left and vice versa, just or in the right, and vice versa. It switches for the logistics of the masculine. So that's a little bit of biology and spirituality in here, and then also the emotional state. So let's move on to perhaps the goody of what I love about plurality. Now my accent's coming out. Plurality. And let's get into, let's move over here, the relationships of polarity. There we go. We are moving and grooving tonight. Wonderful. Awesome. And let's actually make this a different color just to break down things a little bit simpler. So just a revisit of polarity up here with the magnets is we have this gradient factor. So when I'm thinking of relational polarity, thinking of it on a sliding scale. This is the key to getting the relationship you want. This is the key to understanding how to get money to work towards you and not away from you. This is the secret sauce, if you will, of human behavior. Think of it with me. When you are wanting something so badly and you're chasing after it, let's draw this little person. This person is running after their goal. Say, this is my goal. Goal is the sun. I'm always chasing sunlight. So my goal. I'm trying to run towards this. Naturally, whatever you're trying to run towards has to be running away from you in order to keep the law of physics, the law of polarity in motion. So you're never going to chase something if you're going the same direction of it. But if you can reverse the direction of whatever your goal is to be attracted to you, your life just got way easier. This means you can sit down. If you're anything like me, you can just meditate and be happy because your goals are coming towards you. So this concept right here is why relationships really don't work out. Because if you are chasing something and it is running away from you, you're never going to catch it. Versus if you sit down and you figure out how this all works, put it together, you're going to realize real simple that it will come to you. I see it time and time again. So let's see if I can group these together because I need some space. I'm going to get into this for us. Wonderful. Okay, so here we go. Zoom in as well into this relational polarity concept. So we had the masculine earlier and we had the feminine. In every single type of dynamic that we have, we're going to have a masculine and a feminine energy, or what we call a dynamic or an energetic interplay between the masculine and feminine. This really simply just means there must be a giver / a chaser and a receiver / an avoidant. In most heterosexual relationships, the feminine will be the female, and she will be in a relationship with the masculine, which would be the heterosexual male. It doesn't matter, though, what the gender is when it comes to attraction. It doesn't matter what the polarity of it is, as long as there's two different people on the gradient. So let's really figure out what that means, because you're probably like, what on earth are you trying to tell me here? So if you remember earlier, I shared with you that polarity is not just positive and negative. It is an entire gradient of hue. And when you enter into a relationship with somebody, when you decide you're going to have a dynamic, and let's put the female over here with a negative. She's resting. Let's put the masculine over here. You have two different people at play here. Now, if they are both running towards each other or attracting each other, that's the polarity sign. That's the positive and the negative wanting to come together. But if both of them are acting positive or both of them are acting negative, the relationship's never going to happen. And this is because highly polarized relationships increase the intensity and attraction. So if a woman here, because we're just going to stick with heterosexual, but remember, gender doesn't matter, and neither does sexuality. You just have to have this dynamic. So if a woman is operating in her very feminine energy, going back to those qualities we said that were feminine energy qualities, then this is going to cause an attraction factor for the masculine energy. Versus a woman that's operating in a similar masculine energy to him is not going to be very attractive. Again, we don't want like equals like. We want negative and negative to repel each other. And we want the positive and the negative to come together. Now, there is an affiliation in spirituality that you must be similar to the attraction that you're wanting. This has nothing to do with polarity because that goes into the law of resonance. Law of resonance is very different compared to the law of polarity, but they do have a combination factor when it comes to happy relationships. So overall, what we're looking for is the attraction within these two relationships to come together to increase the polarity of our emotional states. This is the secret sauce to everything. This is the hard science. So now we're going to go ahead and I'll pause the video. We're going to work into our activity as the group.